Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spirit Switchboard. I'm your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 in beautiful New Orleans. Thank you so much for being here today. There's a little bit of housekeeping stuff that I'll go through with you guys. Let's get some stuff going here. You can watch us on the UFO Paranormal and the United Public Radio Network YouTube, on Facebook. You can catch us on Roku if you look up UFO Paranormal Radio or the United Public Radio Network on Roku. You can watch us live on there as well too. Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, you can watch us on my Facebook page as well and YouTube channel. If you are commenting, you can log in through StreamYard and just give them permission if you're commenting through Facebook, because sometimes it will show up as Facebook user and we won't be able to know who we're saying thank you to or who we are commenting with. So there's a couple of other things I wanted to share with you guys too, because I'm just about to go there, Mel. Where you can catch me, what's coming up. I have a newsletter. If you go to carrieLynnShellhorn.com, I do have a newsletter that you can sign up for. In the newsletter, I give you some intuitive tips, tell you where I'm going to be. I also try to give the heads up to who's going to be on Spirit Switchboard for the upcoming month, and all of their links, if they have books, websites, give you all that information ahead of time so you can mark it on your calendars and get ready for everything. So one of the things that is coming up in October is the Lake Superior Paracon, and Mel Willis is here in the comments. Mel is one of the organizers, along with her wife, Gail. So through Sudbury, not even Sudbury. Look at me tripping up. Thunder Bay. If you guys have not been to Thunder Bay, Ontario, it is trippy. There is so much going on in Thunder Bay, Ontario. You name it, it's happening. Cryptids, UFOs, hauntings. It's just it's magical. It's like at the top of Lake Superior. So the trees, the rocks, the water, everything about it is super powerful. So it's Northern Ontario is my home. Lori Potvin, who is the host of thank you, Mel. She's got the lakesuperiorparacon.com. She's got the web address through the comments if you wanted to check that out. So I had to write down because there's so many. You have such a great lineup of speakers. I wrote people down because my brain doesn't remember everything. Shane Pittman from the Holzer Files, Laura Lee Potvin from UPRN. The Angel Rock with Laura Lee Potvin on thank you. Just get this up. And the Thing at the Foot of the Bed with David Hansel on Thursdays. You guys are also going to have Jeff Belanger. Jeff Belanger was on the show. If you look through the archives, you can find that episode. Jeff Belanger is very well known, and he's a great speaker. You guys will want to catch up with that. Dave Quigley and Michael John from The Paranormal Voice out of Windsor, Ontario. They're going to be there speaking. Chris Rutkowski published many books about UFOs and anything UFO related. The sisters from Haunted Gold Rush, History's Most Haunted, Beyond the Haunting, they're going to be there as well too. Just so many people. I'm going to be there. I'm going to do a talk. We're doing a dinner on the Friday, investigation on the Saturday night, and I'm doing a gallery readings on the Sunday, a Spirits and Sweets. And it's such a humbling thing to say, and it's kind of weird too, but I don't know, humbling. There is, I have 3 more public events that I'm going to put the tickets up hopefully soon for theater events. And other than that, every event that I've got going this year is already sold out. So all the venues that I do, Spirits and Sweets and Dining with the Dead, are sold out for the year. So if you want to catch me at a live event, I've got 3 more theater events coming up and the event at Lake Superior. So I really hope that you guys can make it up there to join me. Let's get some hellos in. Hello, Gianna, thank you for being here. Mel, I'm going to put this up for you right now too. I'm sorry I didn't do that earlier. Thank you for the link. Hi, Kevin. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Jackie. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for being here. We'll just put this up. Thanks for joining us, Laura Lee. It is going to be awesome, Mel. I agree. It's going to be a great time. There's just so many people that are going to be there. Contessa, thanks for joining us tonight. Contessa, I think you're really going to, well, I think you all are going to enjoy this, but I know part of this story may resonate with you quite a bit. So I'm glad that you're here tonight. You may have some questions that you'd want to ask. Oh, hello, Lorraine. Hi, Lorraine. I hope that the theater shows are going well. Please give Jim a hug for me. So my guest today is also a fellow United Public Radio Network host. He is an author. He is the author of The Horsefly Chronicles, A Demonic Haunting, and The Curse of the Horsefly. Philip Siracusa is also a professional medium, empath, paranormal investigator, and spiritual advisor. Let's bring Philip on to the show. Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
It's I read your first book. So I read the first book, The Horsefly Chronicles. So I'm glad that I had an opportunity to read before I had you on the show. And one of the things I was thinking, is your family background Italian? Is your family background Italian?
Yes.
Okay. My former husband was Italian too. My children are half Italian. I used to tease my daughter when she was younger if she could please use her inside voice and not her Italian voice. She would get a little miffed, but it was okay. And I was thinking about the show a lot this week, about having you on and all of the questions that I have for you regarding the house. That you and Julia is your wife and co-host of the show. It's a vulnerable thing, right? It's a vulnerable thing to stand in front of people and say, even as a medium, to say, this is my life and this is what I'm able to do. This is my experience. And to be transparent about what our experiences are is, it's a lot. There's vulnerability to it, and you are exposing yourself. And I appreciate very much, and I'm very grateful that you are here to share your story and here to, help teach other people, guide them if they're having their same experience, give people a different perspective. I think that it is, we cannot judge. We just can't judge somebody else's experience because we're not walking in your shoes. We're not walking in somebody else's story. And when we talk about high strangeness and paranormal, there is no expert. There is no one to say, this is it, black and white. There's a truth. There's so much, I think, that we will never understand, that we are constantly in a, well, that was something, wasn't it? Kind of place, could you, how do you feel about that?
I feel like each person has their own destiny, and they should share any experiences they go through and have, regardless of who thinks what. I teach people when I do seminars, look, here's the way I explain it. You are born in this world naked and afraid. Of innocence and you cry.
Yeah.
And you will leave this earth alone and naked, in a sense. No one's going with you. So in the ride of the short journey that we have here called life, why would I care? Are you coming with me to the other side? Did you come with me to this side? No. So therefore, every person should live the journey they want to and be the messenger they want to, regardless of what anyone has to say.
Mm-hmm. Laura Lee is just saying hi to you as well.
Hi.
Season Dragon saying hello, Philip, as well too. Hi, Julie. Thank you for being here. I agree. Like we come in having our own individual experiences, and it can potentially ripple out to other people as well too, the people that we connect with. But we are in only we can speak what our personal truth is, and it's not for anyone else to judge what that is. Like,
True. Yes.
It's just our experience. I'd really like to start with did you find your house, or do you feel like your house found you? When you and Julia were looking for the house, do you find, like, I mean, I guess we would have to talk about it from two different perspectives, like before your awareness and where you're at now, and maybe hindsight. Like when you were looking for the house, there's one mindset, which is not where you'll be now, looking at it from hindsight.
We in 2009 we were looking to buy a home in another part of Pennsylvania, and I had found this house on Zillow, and I reached out to the real estate agent, and they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's under contract."
What does that mean?
Under contract means someone else was taking the house.
Okay. We do things different in Canada, so I don't understand some things.
Yeah, so someone else was going to buy the house, another family. So that we went on a journey, and it's interesting because this is where the devil and God come in. So we're on our journey looking for homes, and we find another home that's owned by a priest. And we kind of like it. It's a nice home, and we found it suitable for the kids. But we didn't make a final decision. We were waiting it out, still looking around, just to make sure that that's what we wanted. And then a month went by, and I'm at work in New Jersey, and my wife calls me. She says, "Guess what?" I says, "What?" She goes, "Well, you know that house that you really did like that was under contract? Guess what? It's not on contract anymore." I'm like, "Really? Let's go see it." And so let it be that, no, you see, now we didn't choose the house. The house knew and chose us.
So do you feel that whatever that presence was there, which I want to ask the questions in a way that builds your story. Hopefully you can help guide me if I'm not doing it in the right order. But like the perfect storm. Did you, so I was also thinking, when I was asking you about having an Italian background, having Italian spirits come through when I'm doing sessions for people, they're kind of my favorite people to come in. They are so family oriented. And if you get one Nonna that comes in, she brings in 15 other family members right behind her every time. So I know I'm in for a doozy of a session, right? And it is family oriented. So looking at you as a dad, as a husband, your intention wasn't to put your family in any harm's way, because it's so family oriented, and your focus would have been at that point, correct me if I'm wrong, is just finding a good place, like building your family, finding, kind of how horror movies start. Oh, happy little family gonna find their perfect house. Find the perfect house, and it's almost like the perfect storm waiting to happen. Here's all these like potentially sensitive people coming in, and then the slow burn happens before those big incidences happen, right?
I agree.
Like, yeah, I just couldn't imagine. So you move in, you get the house. Does the purchase go through with no hiccups?
No, there was a lot of hiccups. In fact, there was fights and arguments with their real estate agent. And at one point, I said, "You know what? I don't want the house. Keep it."
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was dealing with some wicked people, and I says, "I don't want the house. I'm done with you people." The approval and the inspection had to go their way, and I'm buying the house, it should go my way. And it was just a whole nightmare.
Right.
It was, and this is not an old house. The house was built in '96. It's an estate neighborhood. It's not an old home. It's a new development. Early 90s it was put up. So my mission was I work hard, I work long, I want to put my family in a nice house, nice neighborhood, and live on. I want to be happy, happy family, happy wife, happy life,
Yep.
But unfortunately, that wasn't the case with this house.
So I would say, I have been sensitive from the time I was little and full time as a career for like 17-ish years. And I don't open up. I'm not on all the time, like going through a house, you can kind of get a vibe or a feeling, but if those presences or the presence within that house is so highly intelligent, they would have hid just to make sure that they got what they were wanting in having this, family come in. So did it feel like a slow burn? Do you know what I mean? Like,
when the real estate agent took us, first we were in the backyard and there was this gust of wind. I remember it was April of 2010. Strong wind came. And then we go in through the back door and she's taken, the first place is the basement because I like rec rooms with a pool table and all that stuff. And then she takes us into a room that was painted this ugly red. And I didn't feel right in the room. Something felt off.
So where was that though? Because I tend to feel if I'm going to feel off anywhere, it's usually like an attic or a basement.
In the basement.
Yeah.
And I'm actually in the room now.
Really, eh? Interesting.
So what happens is, the rest of the basement's fine. It's perfect for a family, And so my wife and the real estate agent go upstairs. And I'm in the room alone, just looking around. And in this ugly redness that there was all red, ceiling, everything. There was an exercise machine in there, but I felt like I was off-centered. I felt like something's not right in this room. And but I dismissed them, like, just my mind playing tricks. And I went upstairs and sat down at the dining room table and we said, you know what, we like it, let's move forward with this. So let it be. That was my warning sign that I should have listened. That
was it equilibrium? Like
yes.
And when your equilibrium is thrown off kilter, you almost feel nauseous as well too, right? Like
yes.
Interesting.
You feel like you're gonna fall down.
Yeah. Laura Lee's just saying, oh no, a red room.
And the people that we were buying the house from were the most miserable souls I've ever met in my life. Now, you got to think of it this way. This is a really nice neighborhood. These are not cheap homes. And you'd say, why? What's wrong with these people? Well, I guess I understand now. What was wrong with the people? I mean, here we are 14 years later.
And
so
again,
I get
hindsight,
it.
though, you wouldn't have looked at that as a red flag. You would just more be looking like, let's hurry up and get this over with so we don't have to deal with the miserable people anymore.
The closing was horrible.
Yeah.
At the closing, there was it was a horrible closing to get the house, and no one got along, and they had attitudes with us. But what was interesting is that after everything was signed, they started to smile, like, it's your place now.
Oh.
And 3 months after the closing, I guess there was a mix-up in the mail because part of their closing check came to this house, and I tried to reach out to them. They wouldn't accept my phone call. So I just put return to sender. And here we are now. Like, now I understand why that they were just saying, we're done with this place.
Avoiding.
We're the third owners of the house. The first two owners lasted 7 years each. And we're the third.
Do you feel, again, it's hindsight, right? Like when you saw that it came at that point, that check, when it came to you, was there anything happening at that point? Again, right? Like you would have just forwarded that.
Kids were happy. Everybody had a lot of room. Everybody was happy, nice, everybody was just nice neighborhood, nice people, and
Yeah.
we were all excited. And of course, I was working long hours, so the one thing that was starting to happen to me, the first thing that was happening to me in this house was on the weekends when I was off work. I says to my wife, I was like, Julie, something's not right. I can't sit still. I feel like I'm on edge. I don't know what's going on with me. I'm going to go join a gym. I have to get out of here. Something's not right with me. And what was happening was I had a nervous condition that was somehow affecting me in this house. Whereas like, when you like get paranoid about something, it was like 100 times worse. And I never had that problem before. And I had to go out and go out. I joined the gym. I joined a couple different things just to like ease my mind because something was feeling off. And I asked her, how did you feel? She goes, I'm okay. I don't see a problem here. And I wasn't thinking of ghosts or hauntings and none of that stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
So then at work, I would talk to coworkers and I says, there's something wrong with my house. And then one guy says, you know what, maybe it's feng shui where the house is off-centered. I'm like, I don't know much about that, but it's what it feels like. It's off-centered.
Right. And I think that's one of the misconceptions and that people may have is that it was constant or like the hauntings are constant, that it's always happening. You're going to know right away. And that's a misconception. It's not the truth. Like it's going to have an ebb and flow to it. And, if it sounds like it was just really trying to get to know where they can push you and how it's going to affect everybody individually is what it sounds like. Z-Sun Dragon. Is that okay if I call you Kevin? Because I kind of know that. Is that all right? Z-Sun Dragon. He's just saying I had a similar experience of a completely painted navy room, ceiling included, had a sense of vertigo there, off balance and general heavy feeling. And I know that, Kevin, you are also sensitive, right? And we don't always get to, even if we are sensitive and in tune, we don't always get to know all the information at once because they're clever. And we don't get all the information. It kind of unfolds over time. So does that make sense to you? Or like, do you feel the same way about those misconceptions and
Most definitely.
Yeah.
The first 6 months living in this home, besides I was on edge, everything was perfect. But after the six months, it started.
Right.
And just what you said, you were correct. It learns you. Mm-hmm. It threw out the fishing line. It pulled in the right family. And then here we go.
Kids included, right? How old, is it okay for me to ask how old the children were when you moved into the house at the time?
My son Jake was a month old.
Oh, he was just a baby.
Yeah. And the other kids were 4, 5, and 8.
I have 4 kids too. That is its own little zoo. Like, yeah. It is. And kids are vulnerable, right? And so they'll look for, I'm assuming they were looking for those vulnerabilities. And how did it, I guess, what would be the first big incidents? Like where would you go? Okay, something more is happening here. So
in the room I'm now, we repainted the room. We made a bedroom out of it because my son wanted his own space in the basement, the oldest one. And we made a bedroom out of the room that I'm in. And I remember coming home from work one night. He says, toys are moving by themselves. I'm like, oh, you're probably kicking them in the middle of the night when you're trying to use the bathroom, I was like, no, but they're going, they're moving, they're going on and off. I was like, stop. I was ignoring it because I was tired, I was working. And the last thing you want to hear after making a big investment is your house is haunted, right?
Well, and it's natural to go left brain first. Yeah. It's natural to go, the wiring, let's call an electrician. Do the batteries need to be changed on the toys? Let's take the batteries out of the dang toys. Who purchases all those damn noisy toys for kids in the first place? Like, you look left brain. We don't always look. And I mean, some people do now, but I mean, back then there was probably not as much talk either of purposely choosing a haunted house or having haunted houses. Like those paranormal shows were just kind of starting and getting rolling at that time. Well, I think anyway. I could be wrong, but you can correct me. I am open to being corrected if I am not right about something. So that the toys would be the first big incident.
The toys.
Wow.
And then
So
I
what was
remember.
the meter with the family? Were you guys? Was there bickering starting?
There you go.
Impatience?
There you go. And so that was the 6-month mark. We're sitting in the living room. It was a Saturday night, and everyone starts arguing. My wife, myself, the kids. What are we arguing about? And I start to see shadows, and I'm dismissing it, thinking it's my eyes. And that's where it started, right there. So it waited to learn us. It waited that 6-month mark, and then now here comes the shadows and the fighting starts.
Right, because in a 6-month period, and I say this about dating too. Anybody else single? I'm single. I've been single for a very long time. Probably because I have some control issues, but that's just something totally else. But it takes about 6 months. Like you see somebody stressed, you see somebody sick, you see somebody angry. Like it takes time to see all those different sides of a person. And, again, if they were waiting to see where those vulnerabilities and cracks are within a family structure, 6 months makes sense to me. I don't know. Maybe. Hey there. Banter with Richie B. Saturday nights, YouTube, Facebook, folks. You were, and this is actually Banter with Richie B. You were on Dave Quigley and Michael John's Paranormal Voice not that long ago, because I think Michael John was on Banter with Richie B talking about his segment with you. You're welcome. You're welcome, Richie. And he contacted you after and said he had an issue with a fly after that interview that you did with them. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah, I do. It's all real. And you ready?
Yeah, let's go. So that's 6 months. So, and I think by that 6-month period, you're figuring it out. It's not feng shui. It's not like have a certain color and move the bed so it's facing northeast or anything like that. There's something else going on.
So here we go. Here comes the haunting.
Richie's like, yes, the fly. Here we go.
3 years passed by.
Yeah.
It was 5 o'clock on a Saturday morning. So now the 3 years that went by, besides little things happening and arguments, but everything subsided in a way where we're okay. We're living happy as a family, having barbecues and parties and all that stuff. Life was moving. But it was this one Saturday morning when I was getting up for work, and I'm in the kitchen and I see this circle, this dark circle the size of a cantaloupe flying back and forth. And I'm like, is it the bulbs, the sun coming through? What is this thing? And I'm looking, I can't even keep up with it with my eyes. It's in the living room, it's in the kitchen, it's in the dining room. It's flying everywhere, the ceilings, and I'm like, I shut my eyes, open my eyes, I'm still seeing it. So I try to dismiss it. I go to work and I meet with a couple of coworkers at a diner and we have breakfast. And I'm like, something's not right with my house. And I start explaining to them what's happening in my home, the toys and the shadows and the fighting. And I'm seeing this circle thing. Now, I want you to listen to this very carefully, how the devil always listens to our words. So we're co-workers, we have corporate jobs, we're not into ghosts and all that stuff. But one of my friends says, tell me more. And I start telling him more about what's happening in my home. And he goes, Phil, you should write a book about this. I'm like, I'm not writing a book about it because it's scaring me, whatever we're living with. I got kids in my home. He's like, no, but something's different about this. So we decided, now hear this, we decided to meet in a part of New Jersey at a friend's house to give all the information and record what was happening in the home by talking about it. So we met that night in Cranford, New Jersey. And I says to them, I want to tell you something. We're friends. The three of us are friends, but from what happens here, I don't know if this thing tries to pull us apart, because I don't know what I'm dealing with. It doesn't feel right. And you kind of know, because you have that inner sense like something is off. Yeah. So they're like, no, come on. It's a good ghost story. We don't believe in all this stuff. I was like, okay. Now I'm being downloaded information. And all of a sudden, I tell my friend, one of my friends, my work, co-workers, I says, play the song Ave Maria so I don't know why I even said this. So we're on the back deck in a beautiful summer day, and he plays the song Ave Maria on a recorder, and I start talking about what's happening in my home. Well, the level of darkness that happens immediately through a visual sense of what we were dealing with. One friend, now these are non-believers, they just wanted to hear the story.
Right.
One friend says, as I'm telling it, he's like, my grandfather's here. I was like, where is he? He's like, no, but he died. And then the other friend, co-worker, saying, my wife's sister's here. But she died in a plane crash. And I'm saying, what's happening to everybody? What is happening here? And now at one point, I don't feel like me no more. I feel like I'm a conduit of this thing. Right. And then we're being circled. Ironically, a horsefly comes. And we're being circled counterclockwise. And we think it's coincidence. Now he's seeing one person that's gone, and he's seeing another person. And the horsefly we're all witnessing. Well, what was actually happening was I was opening up a doorway on behalf of the spirits.
By acknowledging it.
By acknowledging it. And I had no clue what was happening, but exactly. A door that was a crack open has now become wide open. And I'll pause it there before you have any see if you have any questions.
Yeah, well, I think though, from my experience as well too, when they start seeing whether they were actually seeing their loved ones or not, or if this was projecting, but those energies projecting to push for the reaction to feed off of the reaction, right? Because then it can grow from
exactly
for the reactions, right?
Exactly.
Would you think? Truthful? Yes, and Kevin is just also adding, distracting you from telling the story came to mind. Like, it's that smoke and mirrors. We're going to do this over here while we create chaos over here. So you're talking about this while I'm creating more chaos in the background, right? Laura Lee was just sharing who also had a demonic experience as well too. Plus, when a dark mist orb shows up visibly, I know I kept feeling like my eyes were malfunctioning the first time. Hi, Julie. Julie Krause, spiritual advisor. She was also on the show. You can look back through the archives and find that segment as well too. She was really looking forward to this interview today, Phil. Richie's just asking, how have your friends and coworkers acted towards you since this event? There's more to that story that unfolds, though, correct? Do you want to
yes.
keep going with that?
So now we're having experiences, and we're being circled by a horsefly counterclockwise, which we think it's summer, so it's a coincidence. And
no such thing.
Exactly. And I'm learning, right? Because this is back now in this was in July of 2013. So I deliver the story, and no one feels right. Nobody. My friend's wife comes out and she goes, something's happening in the home. This is in New Jersey. I live in Pennsylvania. And my other friend's like, I don't understand what's happening. I don't feel right either. So I drove home, and on the way home, I was like, something's not right. But they wanted me to tell my story. They thought it'd make a good book, and I did, period. Well, here's what's happening now. Now the door is open. Now, none of us on this. I'm a believer, but I'm a skeptic. They're not believers, and here we go.
Open-minded skeptics are my favorite people, Philip.
So now,
favorite.
We meet at work on that Monday. Comes up, and we're talking briefly about, they're like, they don't feel right in their own homes where they're living. They're like, I feel like someone's watching us, but I don't believe in it. But I feel like someone's watching us. I was like, I think someone's watching me too. And my friend goes, hey, by the way, we need an editor for the book. I was like, I don't really want to do the book. He's like, no, we have to do the book. I was like, well, look what's happening already. He's like, no, come on. I don't believe in this stuff. So then we're on a search for a psychic, okay, to help us with the story and an editor. So he puts an ad on Craigslist for a psychic. And this girl responds, and he gets back to me. He's like, I found somebody. He goes,
how do you weed out psychics through Craigslist, though? Like, that's what I would like. How do you? Because there's levels of ability.
I will tell you this: we found an accurate one.
Okay.
And I'm learning at this. Again, I questioned everything, but he says we want a psychic to help us. I was like, okay. Then my son comes home from school one day. He goes, Dad, guess what? I know you're looking for an editor. My school teacher said she'll help you with your book because I told the family about it. I might want to do a book. I said, great. So we go
what was the teacher of?
Science teacher.
Oh, crazy. Okay.
So we meet in her house in another part of Pennsylvania, me and the coworker, and she agrees. She's like, I'll take this on. She goes, I really don't believe in any of this stuff, but I'll be the editor so I can help you get in a good format. And we're like, yes. And then we meet with a psychic in another part of New Jersey, and she's telling me, now she doesn't know me at all. And I'm not even known at anything at this point. I'm just a worker. And she tells me what the inside of my house looks like without even knowing the address. And she's describing the inside of my home. And she says, in that home, be careful because underneath the stairs in the basement, there's something that's not good there, which would be the room in front of me that I'm in right now. So I take it with a grain of salt, right?
Right.
Now eventually we all meet, and so we have an editor who I'm delivering the book to, like the story, okay? We have a psychic, and everyone's happy, and it's a go-ahead. But we needed one more thing. We needed an artist to draw the pictures I'm describing. So the psychic finds an artist. Okay, now, you ready?
Yep, my chest is getting tight.
Now,
okay.
The entity has everything in place because here's what's going to happen. I get a call one day from one of my coworkers. There's something not right in my home. I don't know what it is. I'm hearing voices. I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't have those abilities to tell you what's going on in your home. There's something in my house. The next day, the psychic is saying that there's little bugs coming out of her wall sockets. She lives with her grandmother. She's like, I can't explain this. Bugs. And I think that she's nuts. That's my first reaction. There's something wrong with you, maybe. Bugs out of a wall socket is unheard of.
Right.
And a week passes by, and the school teacher, who's the editor of the book, says that something is in her house, opening and shutting doors when she's alone. Now, you have to understand that I'm taking all this in, and I'm like, okay, either I'm going nuts or everyone around me's going nuts, or we're all going nuts together.
Right.
So we decide, hey, let's get someone who can help us get on a radio show and talk about these experiences, okay? So we hire a publicist out of New York City who gets involved, and she's very costly. She's costing me a lot of money, but she's helping me and these people get on a radio and talk about what's happening because we think that this is mysterious now. Well, she gets us onto this one radio show, And we all meet in New Jersey. And back then there was no video, it was audio.
Right.
And I get on the guy's show, and the three of us take parts in what we're experiencing at that time, And after the show, he goes, thank you. I don't believe it, but thanks for coming on the show. I was like, thank you. I appreciate it. A week later, I get an email from him stating never to be on his show again, never to be in touch with him again, because he's out in Tennessee and he's being haunted by disembodied voices.
Right.
So now I tell my wife, I'm like, what's going on here?
So
then the
stating that he
publicist
didn't
said to
believe
me,
is like provoking.
yes, poking, yes.
Mm.
And the publicist gets in touch with this this podcast called Darkness Radio. And I'm like, okay. She goes, it's a pretty big one. I didn't know much about
it's
all this stuff.
Dave Schrader.
Yeah. And then we all meet. This is about a week later or two, and we all meet. And now I'm on Darkness Radio with Dave Schrader and Twin City, I think it was called, or something like that. And I'm talking about the story.
Right.
Well, this is what happened. We're in Cranford, New Jersey. It's me, the psychic, a coworker, Dave Schrader and his partner on the other end of that phone.
Was it
on
Tim?
the other end of the phone.
Right.
I'm telling the story, and then they would tell what was happening to them. The bugs out of the wall sockets, the ghost in the guy's house. And at the end of that show, the psychic says, I have to talk to you. I was like, okay. So the show ended. What you could feel in the house is tension, like a tension rod. This is not my home now. You feel this, like something was going to snap in that house. Something didn't feel right.
Right.
So we sit after the show, we're sitting at the dining room table, and she's right across from me, and my coworker's to the left of me, and she goes, I know everything.
What was
said,
her
what are you
demeanor
talking?
like?
Evil.
It shifted.
And her eyes were dark, and I grabbed her hand because I thought she was going to jump at me and punch me in the face, and she was cold as ice. And she goes, I know every word of the last page of the book. The book wasn't even written. It wasn't published.
Right.
And she told me word for word what was going to come out in that book. And she goes, look at me. I know everything, and I will destroy all of you. Now, I'm a big guy. I was intimidated. I couldn't drive home after that radio show and after what she's telling me.
Right.
We were in the living room of that house, and she's on this rocking chair, rocking back and forth. I'm shaking. She's cold as ice. Her eyes are dark, and it's no longer the psychic. It's no longer. It's an entity inside of the psychic, and she's smiling and laughing with this stupid grin on her face. And I said to myself, I'm not driving back to Pennsylvania, which is an hour and a half away, by myself. I might as well just stay up and see what this nut job is going to do. She's going to try to attack me because she's not leaving his house. She won't leave.
Right.
And all night she's got this grin, and she's cold,
and
very
rocking
cold.
and staring.
As soon as the sunlight came, she became herself again.
So, like, at that point, that's like that first nick in the armor, right? Like chipping away. And is that the first step that now, again, in hindsight, where you would see it was trying to isolate you or like separate you, make you feel alone in this journey?
I wasn't feeling alone. I was feeling like it has the group it wants, and now it knows what it's going to do to each individual.
Right. Well, I would feel like that starting again, like did that psychic stay with you? I guess I'm jumping into the story, but I am ADHD, so sometimes I check the end of the story and then I come back to the middle. But it would feel like it's starting to knock people off, like isolating you at some point, right? Like everyone is saying, oh, wow. Richie's like, double yikes. For sure. Contessa, I'm so glad that you're here for this, Contessa. I'm getting goosebumps for sure. And then my question would be too, like, again, it comes back to sensitive people, psychics, mediums, all of us, we all work differently. We all have our own traumas and experiences and stuff that we bring to the table, right? Everybody does. Like, did it in its own way start picking off any of those weakest links? Like, let's start here and just keep, at
So
it.
I go home the next day. I didn't sleep for days. I meet with the coworker at work. I'm like, I don't feel right. I don't know what's wrong with her. There's something wrong with that psychic. Is she on drugs? What's wrong with her? But then part of it is like, but she
Valid
was
question.
a nice, innocent girl, and I seen her for myself. She was cold at night, and her eyes were dark, and she knew things. There's something wrong with her. So I was like, let's get a second psychic. Let's get another one. And just see if this one's got maybe she's got some mental issues. So he puts another ad on Craigslist, and then we get another psychic. So now we have another psychic, and she's from a part of Pennsylvania.
I just think it could go wrong on Craigslist, but I mean.
So now we have another psychic.
Yeah.
We have the editor. Now I get a phone call. This is going back like 2 weeks later after that. The editor goes, I can't do it no more. She goes, I'm a school teacher. Your son's in my class. I'm being haunted. I can't continue this book for you. I was like, oh, come on. We went this far. We're almost done. She's like, I can't do it. Something's not right in my own home. I was like, well, maybe it's psychosomatic. Maybe it's power of thought. Maybe, she goes, well, something's throwing dimes at my windows. My husband is a witness to this. Something's flushing my toilet bowl and there's nobody there. So I try to give every scientific explanation that maybe there's something behind the plumbing and, you're just making these things happen. I don't know.
Intention and mindset are a big deal.
Then my coworker, he says, I get a call. He's like, my wife, she fell down the stairs and she broke her ankle. I was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And now days are going by, and then I'm on the phone with him, talking about our next podcast from the publicist in New York City that's setting us up. And as I'm on the phone with him, he's like, there's a fly in my house. I'm like, okay, well, it's a fly. He goes, no, this is a big fly. It doesn't look like a horsefly, it's just a big fly. And then all of a sudden he goes, hold on. And I hear a bang, bang, bang. He falls down the stairs and breaks his tailbone. I'm like, are you there? Are you there? Phone gets disconnected. So what happened was the wife had fell down those stairs and broke her ankle. Then he falls down the stairs talking about the next podcast that the publicist set up. And then he breaks his tailbone. Okay. Now here we go about the picking off. One of the original co-workers who says, you got a book here, says, I'm out completely. Whatever's going on here, I'm being affected. I don't believe in this stuff, but it's affecting me. I'm out. He drops out. The psychic who got the artist that drew the original picture, which I took off Amazon because I felt like it was tainted of some kind of a haunting itself. He drew the picture of the horsefly on the original book, tries to commit suicide after the artwork is done. The psychic, the first original psychic, tries to drive her car off the outer bridge between New Jersey and Staten Island and take her life. Now, I'm a rational person. I'm a family man, and I try to dissect what I'm actually hearing and seeing versus what's happening in everyone's life right now. And what's happening is it learned our weakness, it learned our vulnerability, and now it's going after us.
Yeah. And so I've got a couple of questions too. Was there more in-house fighting, kids not getting on, tension between you and Julia was more also building up during that time, not just with the outside people who were trying to involve themselves in the story of the house and the book. Was there stuff going on there? And I'm sorry, Kathy, I know you've asked a couple of questions and I wrote it down so I could come back to you. There are people asking like, why didn't you leave the home, get an exorcism? Did you contact a priest to see if they could help? These are some of those questions, but I mean,
yeah, we're going to get to all that.
Yes, I agree. You're unfolding the story in a way that will answer all those questions. If you guys just hang tight and stay with us in the chat, because I think those questions that you have will be answered. Laura Lee is just saying, every time we tried to get help in my previous home, something always pulled help away. Illness, death, a family pulled in another direction because of what was happening to them after connecting. Like people didn't want anything to do with them. And it's not simple. Like outside people looking in can have from their own perspective, but when you're in the middle of it, you are having your own experience that we can't judge, or how you were approaching this. Like you were doing what you felt was the right thing to do at that point in time, and still from a left brain, position, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't. We don't purposely put our children in harm's way.
No.
Like you were seeking answers the best way that you could.
I was seeking answers, and now everyone is being targeted in different ways, whether they believed or didn't believe. So the school teacher I convinced to please finish the book so it can be released on Amazon. The psychic who tried to drive off the bridge pulled out of the whole thing. She stopped talking to everybody. The guy who tried to commit suicide, who drew the original cover, which we took off of Amazon, of the horsefly, which with the hand coming out, he wound up in a mental institution for a while. Now we're going back a long time. This is back in 2013. One of the other co-workers dropped out, and another psychic in Pennsylvania tried to slit her wrist. So where's everybody? I says to my wife, I don't know. I have no words. A week goes on. The publicist of New York City sends me a threatening letter saying, I don't want your money, and if you ever contact me again, I'll sue you. Now, she's getting paid a lot of money. And I did ask, what's going on? And she says, whatever you did or conjured up, whatever's happening is affecting my children. Goodbye. Now, you got to understand something, that someone's getting paid a decent amount of money to get us on radio shows to talk about it. She's out. The school teacher, out. The psychics, out. My co-workers, no one's even talking to me.
Right.
Here comes the isolation part.
Yeah.
Now everyone's fighting and arguing, and then back at home, everyone's fighting and arguing. But exactly what's happening is there's more shadows in the home. You think it's the bulbs, you think it's the sun, you think it's coincidence, you think it's psychosomatic, power of thought, and everyone's fighting and bickering. But then family members like cousins and relatives starting to slowly become distant of us. And like, why? So I find this local paranormal team. I see them on television, and they weren't too far away from my destination, my home. I reached out to them. I was like, I would like you to come to my house. I'm dealing with something I can't explain. Mm-hmm. So they come to the house, and we have a meeting, and they agree to do an investigation at my home. Now, I'd never seen a real investigation in front of me, back that many years ago. So one night, it was a Friday night, and it was like a crew of 7 people. Cameras, DVR systems, REM pods, K2, they're bringing in everything. They have their own psychics, their own mediums. These are well-known people on television. They're like, okay, let's see what we got here, Phil, So they made me fill out a questionnaire, anyone taking drugs and all this other stuff, yada, 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 family history of everything. So we go through everything. They go, you might have.
And those are fair questions. Like they're hard questions to ask people, and it feels like you're being intrusive. But medications, illness, history of mental health issues within a family structure. Like all of those things we need to, if we're going to research without bias as well too, we need to ask all of those kind of questions. So again, it's putting yourself in a vulnerable position, not wanting people to, you're not intentionally trying to put anybody in harm's way. You're seeking answers.
Yes. So this was a Friday night, and they separate basement, backyard, upstairs, the top floor. Everyone's separated, the whole team. My wife goes in her room, my kids stay in their own room, and I just go in the den. They have all their systems hooked up, the lights are out, and now they're starting to do their investigation. I hear a knock at the den door, which I lock myself in, and it's one of the psychics. And she says, "Can I come in?" I was like, "Yeah, come in, of course." And she's looking at me and staring at me. And she says, "I'm going to kill you." I said, "Excuse me?"
Was the door locked still? Did you relock that door? Were you alone in a room with somebody who clearly is not that person? Sorry.
You know what happens when you're in fight or flight mode is you don't know what to expect or how to react to certain, like that impulsive reaction of, my first thing was, "Excuse me?" And then she just walked out. And then what about in the basement? And then I got the team leader who's, the guy who's in charge. I was like, "I think your psychic's got a problem, so you either straighten her out or get her out of my house."
Right.
He goes, "No, she's being affected. Something's not right here." So then all of a sudden I hear people running up from the basement screaming, and then they're running out my front lawn, and then two of them are throwing up on my front lawn. And this is now 1:00 in the morning, and I'm like, what's going on here? Throwing up. Okay, and then the team leader comes to me. He's like, "Look, there's something in that basement that is not good." He goes, "We're going to do an electromagnetic wave test in that basement, see exactly what we're trying to figure out here." He goes, "Because all the equipment's going on and off and on and off, just like the toys were back years prior."
Right.
And what they did was they started taking pictures, and then they started doing recordings, and their team is fighting each other. Now they're arguing about who should be doing what, and it was a total mess. So the night went on, they leave, the next morning comes. I said to my wife, "I'm never doing this again." I think I had a bunch of idiots in my house. But I was learning because I really wasn't getting it. I was not getting it. Is it Italian and a thick skull from New York? The old Italian saying is this: believe none of what you hear and hear for what you see. That's the way we do things. I wasn't getting it,
Yeah.
So that team leader reaches out to me, I think it was like a week or two later. It's like, "Let's meet up." We meet up at a diner, and he shows me pictures. And in the pictures look like a demonic looking figure in the room that I'm in. And I'm like, well, maybe it's Matrixing or an optical illusion, But you could see the outline of this thing. It did look like a demon, but I wasn't buying it. He goes, "That's fine. Listen to the recording."
Right.
And in the recording, it's the psychic asking questions, and in the background, you hear these growls. That started to scare me.
Growls are like your hackles just go up, and it's like head to toe, and we had an experience in the house that we lived in Northern Ontario, and there was definitely something that was oppressing my oldest son at the time. And when I went into that room, because I was going to deal with it, being my 5'2" cocky self, in I go, and I got growled and scratched in that space. And you don't forget that, like it burns, and it's a sound. It's something. It's something. And even with pictures, I have found you can take a picture and not see something at first, and then it will appear later. Like it can shift and change how it wants to present and manipulate photographs even after they've been taken. From my experience, growls are bone chilling and gutting. I agree. I'm sorry, Phil, if I hijacked. I didn't mean to hijack. let's get rid of this person who's like, I learned this new phrase from our dear friend Howie. He says we're just going to flush the toilet. So we're just going to get rid of this person who's spamming everybody at the moment. We're just going to flush the toilet and get rid of some of this stuff here. Because you guys don't need to be hit up for like, this would be the Craigslist. You're going to find that physical tarot person on the Craigslist. If you're needing a reading, don't go to Craigslist. Okay. There we go. Hi, Shane and Tammy. Annie, yes, Annie had a very scary growl right in my face in the dark and felt the breath, and you don't forget it. When you're hearing those growls, even if it's through a recording, it's life altering when you start having that stuff. Like when it's right there, it's life altering. And it adds to feeling isolated or alone. And who's going to believe me now? And where do we reach for help? What do you do next? Right.
So we were on a mission. We took the evidence from the first paranormal team, which was a reputable team. And then a month later, I says, you know what, to my wife, I was like, let's just have one more team here that doesn't even know the first team, just to see what they get, you know?
Right.
And it's a Saturday, and they all meet here on a Saturday night, and I drive home from work, and another big team comes here, and they set up their equipment, and then they're walking through the kitchen, the living room, and all of a sudden the leader, the female who's in charge of the team, I see she's right in front of me walking, and she gets a gash on her ankle as if she like banged into something, and she's bleeding really bad. And so we stop and the investigation, bandage her up, and then they continue. Then the film guy that they have says, there's this thing floating around the basement. It's a circle. It's this black circle. And he caught it on film. And
that must have felt validating, but scary at the same time.
I was happy that someone else has seen what I seen and caught it on film.
Right.
That was important to me. And that investigation didn't go good because in each individual was affected in a different way that night. And then when we tried to meet on, everyone just started fighting. No one was getting along. So I says to my wife, you know, maybe it's time to reach out to somebody who knows about this stuff. You know, maybe it is a demon. You know, I don't know if I believe that, but maybe it is.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the psychics that were helping us had a friend, but her name is Melissa Leeper, who reached out to a guy named Bill Bean. And she puts me on a conference call with him. And I'm explaining to him what's happening. I'm in my office in the basement. And he's a really nice guy. And I'm telling him, you know, this is what we're encountering. And he says some kind of prayer over the phone. And as he's saying the prayer, my papers in my office are flying up in the sky. They're all flying everywhere. And I'm telling him, like, the papers are flying. Like there's like the wind coming from nowhere. And he's like, I would have to get to that house. There's something not right in that house. So, you know, we tried to make plans, but when you make plans, remember this. Not only does the devil know the players, and not only does he know how to affect every single player, he knows when they're going to come too, but he knows how to stop them.
And it's our thought, like, you don't even have to say it out loud. Like, your thoughts are loud. The thoughts get heard before the words are even spoken.
True, yes.
So, you know, it would have felt like it was one step ahead of you all the time.
Oh, yeah. It was one step ahead of everybody.
Julie is just asking, was your sleep affected at that point?
Sleep paralysis was happening.
Yeah. And And again, there's ebbs and flows. So it's going to be active at some points, and other times you're going to have periods where it's not. I'm sure like there was stretches of time where there was nothing happening,
Of course.
and then it lets you have that, you feel like everything's good, or maybe I was just making it up. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it's gone. You get into almost a vulnerable place again in order for it to get the big reaction and feed off of that again.
I agree. I definitely agree with you. So then we reached out to a local priest, and we wanted to live a life and be happy again. Because don't forget now, not only is all this happening with all these people, my own family's being affected.
Yeah.
Right? The kids are getting scared, and we're fighting, and it feels unsettled, the house now,
Yeah. An extended family, like everybody. It would just ripple out to everyone that's connected to you.
We made an arrangement. The local priest comes, and he agrees to bless every room in the home with the prayers and say the holy water. And he had me hold the candle and walk behind him. And he did the entire home. He did every single room. Nothing happens. He says, your house is fine. It's blessed. And he left. And me and my wife say, nothing happened. A few hours later, here comes the shadows casting in the hallway. And they're very distinctive shadows. They're not body apparition shadows. These are like these misty shadows. They look like snakes.
Well, and people don't get it. If they've not seen a dark shadow, it's darker than dark. Like you are in a dark room, and it's still darker than that darkest room you've ever been in. Like, and again, if you've not had that experience, you just have to be open-minded that we don't know everything. And there are things that you can't comprehend, and be open-minded that there's just stuff that we don't know enough about, but there's light and dark for sure. Light and dark for sure. I just am noticing the time too. So I'm just going to do the station ID really quick before we get going, because everybody is so engrossed, and I know that I have more questions as well too. We're going to have to do Phil Siracusa part 2 and 3, I think, to get to all the other parts of your story, not just the house even. So if you guys are just joining us, thank you so much for being here. You are listening to Spirit Switchboard. I am your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM and 107.7 in New Orleans. And we have Philip Siracusa on the show, who is also a host here on UPRN Network of the Horsefly Chronicles Radio. Is that right?
Yes.
Like Chronicles Radio. Yeah. So we were just talking about you had a priest into the house, and that there was nothing happened when the priest was there. And then you started having the shadows happen later on that evening or later on that day. Can you continue the story from there for us?
Yes. So the shadows come back. When the priest was here, nothing happened. And then we got in touch with this guy that was mentioned that he could be helpful, Sean Austin, who was part of this show, The Demon Files. And he says, I'll come down and do an investigation, a thorough one by myself. And when he got here, he's like, I was in the gym, and he lives in a few states away. He's like, I'm being circled by a fly in the gym. He goes, I couldn't find my way here because the GPS kept getting me lost, but here I am, I made it. So he comes here. As soon as he walks into the basement, down the basement stairs, he's like, I see it. I was like, what do you see? He's like, I see it. It's the size of a cantaloupe. It's dark. It's flying everywhere.
Wow.
And I felt like this is a seasoned paranormal investigator. Now he sees what I'm seeing. Now it's validated. And then that night he was doing his investigation. And what was happening on the audio equipment that he was running, there was a lot of threats made from the other side. These evil voices and threats, all threats.
And I find like with somebody that's seasoned or experienced, the investigation is really just validating maybe what they're already picking up and don't always have to investigate. Like he tapped in right away and was able to validate you immediately. And so you're right. That's somebody who gets it, really gets it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in the completion of the investigation, he had also agreed that this is demonic. This is not a good thing. Whatever this thing is, it wants control and destroy the family. That's what it wants.
So when does the research of the house, the property, the land, when does that begin?
Well, it took me time, and we had made plans to move. My wife and I and the kids, we says, you know what, we're going to leave because we don't feel right. Now we recognize something's in this house, and we try to make plans to move. You know, when you live a real haunting, is when it knows how to stop you from everything you're going to do.
Mm.
So what does that mean? We could say the words, we're going to move, and we planned on looking for another location, but then here come the finance problems.
Right.
Well, I lose my job. Car breaks down. The refrigerator breaks. Now it's going after everything. And my money's coming out, and I'm like, I don't even know if we could pull this off.
Right.
It stopped us right in our tracks. And not only did it stop us, but it gave me the ambition now to say, bring more people in. So I was being downloaded information to bring more teams into this house and do more investigations. But little did I know that that's what it wanted. It wanted to be investigated because it grew stronger in darkness and presence, because it's like a cord. And everyone that got involved, it had a cord attached to them.
Right.
Where it wasn't just here now. So then we get this guy through the psychic, Dave Spinks, who's another few states away again. He's out in Westchester, a really nice guy, comes down to the home, doing an investigation. These are seasoned people, you know. And I remember weeks later, he calls me and says, it's at my house now. This thing's at my house. What is it? I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's intelligent. It's got a voice. Sometimes it sounds like a female disembodied voice, and it's creepy. But is it not the same female disembodied voice that took over the original psychic in 2013 in Cranford, New Jersey, who made her pale, white, and cold as ice, and her eyes turned dark and threatened me and my coworkers? Is it not the same disembodied voice who went after the artist to take his life? And is it not the same disembodied female voice who went after the editor? So what was happening was, as we were investigating it was growing stronger against us.
Right. And it will. And so there's a couple of things that I wanted to that energy projecting around you, right? And it can be in more than one place at one time. It could be in so many different places, wreaking havoc in so many different ways, right? Like, I think that's what you're starting to acknowledge at that point in time, or see. Julie is saying, what a smart energy. And they are. It's smart and calculating. You know, it's not just that it's smart and calculating. Grant Evans is asking. Grant has been on the show a couple of times as well too, and he's part of TOP's paranormal team here in Ontario. They do a lot of teaching and helping and supporting people in charity work here. He is asking, why didn't you pursue? And that's an assumption because we don't know the full story yet, because it hasn't unfolded the whole story. So we don't want to make assumptions. Pursuing following up with the clergy after the one visit versus continuous investigators. Contessa's saying its roots were branching out. And Shane and Tammy Johnings is sharing, I had once been pulled to the foot of my bed at home and once at my trailer. It's terrifying. Tammy. Thank you, Tammy.
So,
do you want to respond to that, or
well,
does the story continue?
I get to that. I actually get to that.
Perfect.
Thank you. Clergy. So, Sean Austin knew a guy, Ralph Sarchie. Ralph Sarchie, well known. There's a movie based on him, Deliver Us from Evil. He was trained by the Warrens. He comes here. And we're in the basement. And he's looking past me. I know he sees something near the toy box. And he's looking. And then there was me, one of the psychics, Scott Gerhardt, Ralph Sarchie, and all of a sudden, and Ralph's friend, another person who is an investigator, I start going into shakes. My body starts shaking, like really bad. I couldn't control it. I couldn't hold, like I'm shaking really bad. And then telepathically, I'm being told he has to get that case out of the house by a female voice. He brought a case into my home, some kind of a briefcase. And the voice is saying he has to get the case out of the house. And I'm telling him, get the case out of the house. I don't know what's in the case. And I'm shaking and I can't control my body. So he runs to the case, he gets holy water, and he starts to put it on me, the holy water. And I'm slowly coming to, but whatever it wanted that case out of the house, and then he goes back in the case and he takes out this huge cross. Mm. And now I felt like I'm actually scared now, because whatever's inside of me, this thing is taking me over now. It doesn't want this guy in the house.
Right.
So he takes everything out of the house, and then he starts to put the recorders on, recording what's going on here. Now I realized at this point of my life that this was February 2014. This is no joke. This is real. This is game on now with this thing. And if it could do that to me, then it could just destroy everybody, I guess.
Were you having like temper volatile issues or anything like that? Or do you feel it, like, was there anything leading up to that? Or did it jump you in that moment?
Jumped me in that moment.
Okay.
And I was taking the reaction of a nervous condition of not wanting something in the house, and I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Up until I was telepathically told for him to get that case out of the house.
And I've had clients who have reached out to clergy where clergy has, refused to go into a house as well too, and has not wanted to be associated with. So it's hard to find the right person. It's not something that they're not on Craigslist like the psychics are. Like, but finding clergy that's willing to come in,
I will say this, that those two psychics on Craigslist were valuable, incredible in their work. They were the real deals. And it's very hard to find people that are real deals on Craigslist, but they were the real deals.
That's good.
By validation of telling me what my house looks like before even entering this house. Yeah. I have the address to the house, so you couldn't even look up the house. So, but again, now here goes, Ralph Sarchie, if you look up the Demon Files, and the guy's been around. He's not a spring chicken to paranormal. He knows his stuff.
Right.
And I had to take all this in, and now I'm starting to unfold of how do you get help? Can't get out of the house because there's no money. It took out the money. I lost my job. Everyone's fighting, and now clergy's not even working because it's backfiring.
Right. So what's next? Like, what happens?
So what's next is Phil and his wife decide to get an entire ministry here. The ministry is Wiccan, shaman, priest, reverend, deacon. It's the whole works at once.
Different modalities and backgrounds?
Yes. We figured let's get it from every single angle. Every angle. They come early on a Saturday morning. This was May 2015. It was all set in stone, and here we go again. Ministry comes, they're setting up everything, who's walking the property, saying certain things. I don't understand like how they talk in tongues. That's what they were doing and whatnot. And who's doing the smoke signals around the property. And then they got people coming in the home and doing prayers, and all the stuff is happening by all forms of religion.
At
And
the
I'm
same
happy,
time.
right? Yes. And they wanted me and the psychic that was working on the case at the time to go in the basement. When they were all done with all that, we go into the basement, and they surrounded us because they felt like we were infected by this entity. And they start reading prayers. This is what happened to me. It came from the gut of my stomach and was pulling upward, this vibration. And now I was becoming evil. And I didn't feel like Philip anymore. I felt like I'm it. And I'm saying things that I would never say, which I won't repeat on the radio. And the psychic is having the same affection that she's going through, and she's cursing and this and that. And now it's getting bad. The lights are flickering in the basement. There's about 6 of us down there. And I was no longer myself. I was oppressed by the entity, slowly becoming to the form of possession. They were trying to hold me down. There was a couple of big people here trying to hold me down, and I had a rage inside of me that came from nowhere. And I was in the exact spot that was a year prior when Ralph Sarchi was here, when I got taken over.
Right.
And they kept doing prayers in the holy water, and then in my mind telepathically says we beat them. It's not me talking to me, and I was relaxed. It says we beat them. They take me, and I go to another part of my own basement. I'm sitting down in the couch area now. Then the psychic comes to, and she feels fine. And I was trying to understand what that meant, but I felt like myself again. So they leave, right? Everything's done. The next night would have been Sunday night. I had paperwork to do, but that Sunday morning, my kids in the living room playing with their toys. Me and my wife had tears in our eyes. We're happy. We're a happy family again. It's gone. It's over. But as the night rolled in, I had to go in the basement and do something. And there was this little toy on the floor, and it went off by itself. Little toy dinosaur. And I thought I kicked into it, by accident. So I come out of my office, and it's going on and off again. At the same exact time, my kids are screaming on the 3rd floor that night that there's something upstairs. The lights are flickering. At the same time, the TV in the middle floor is going full blast. At the same time, this toy is again going on and off. Like, what's happening here? What's happening in my own home? What's happening? We won. We don't win anything. I was mad. I says to my kids, get your cell phones and start recording this. And we were starting to record what's happening. And now we're dealing with an activity that is taking over 3 floors. It's a vengeance saying, remember I told you we won? That was only to fool them. Now here we really go.
Right. And again, isolating you and wearing you down. It's wearing you down and isolating you. So that's, did you know the history of the land at that point? Like when they came, you didn't know what the history was at that point?
Well, I eventually do find out the history of the land, but it wasn't at that point.
Right. I mean, you must have felt defeated.
We felt defeated, yeah. As a family, we were defeated, most definitely. So we says, I forgot how it happened, but they wanted to have National Ghost Hunting Day here because now we're not winning anyway. We can't leave. We can't remove it by clergy. We've tried the ministry. We've tried the priest. That ain't working.
Yeah.
So now we're falling into it. It's trapping, like, whatever. It is what it is at this point. So we get National Ghost Hunting Day here, which is we have this as the central hub.
Right.
We have Brian Cano come here. And Now I like him because he's skeptic and he's scientific and he's a believer at the same time. Like he tries to roll things out. And we're in the room I'm in now, the night before National Ghost Hunting Day of 2017. This is all documented, by the way. This is all on YouTube.
Yeah.
And
was Brian Cano part of like the TAPS team?
no, he was with Haunted Collector with John Zaffis.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I asked him, I was like, what do you think's going on here? He says, you're on a giant portal.
That was a question that Kathy had asked earlier. And I put this up so we don't lose it. I just want this question from Grant. So when you finish this, we could come back to this if that's okay.
He felt like we're on a giant portal. And that whatever's coming through it is just so many different things that can come through. It's a passageway from both worlds. National Ghost Hunting Day happens the following day, and we have a full crowd here, we have the public is here, he's here, and if it can go wrong, it does go wrong because now it knew exactly what this entity knew. Okay, now we're going to play with the electronics. It shuts everything down. Not only does it shut everything down in the house, simultaneously, the whole National Ghost Hunting Day in every state internet gets shut down. At the same exact time, he's picking up activity in the home. Now, there's some of the stuff you just can't make up. This is documented stuff.
Yeah.
Then it goes back on, and nothing's right. Everyone's arguing, and it felt like everyone, and there was a lot of people here, like 50, 60 people. It felt like everyone was not themselves. It's kind of like everyone was in this hub of energy that was under its own umbrella that the entity wanted. Right.
And there is almost like an electricity in the air. It shifts for sure. I just wanted to come. So I Kathy, that I think answers one of the questions that you had asked earlier that I said that I felt that we would get to it because she was asking earlier if there was a portal. And Grant and Kevin are just kind of having a couple of comments sort of back and forth, but I'd like to read them to you. Theoretically, possession does not occur until permission. Was there an internal dialogue with this entity for you, or was this all spontaneous? Sorry if I missed this part of your story. I jumped in late. And Z Sun Dragon responded, I'm not sure about that, Grant. If one is typically unprotected, would they not be prone to attacks? And he's saying, just my thoughts. So again, just sort of that conversation, like, you are doing what you can to protect yourself as well too. And then being open to wanting to understand what it is. So, is that permission, not permission? How do you, would you like to respond to that?
I'm no expert, Look, I'm a family guy. I'm no expert in this field. I don't think there's no experts.
I agree with that.
I don't have all the answers. Permission, no permission. I tell the story the way it happened. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I can't answer that.
Every time you felt like you got an answer, you got knocked in another direction. So you thought here we go. Okay, I think we got a solution and an answer, and then wham, you get hit with something, another layer of it, right? And I agree. I think there's just so much that we can't. It's a rabbit hole that we go down that just when we think that we got an understanding, we're going to be hit sideways with something else. I think that all we can do is keep accumulating information and share it with other people so that they can learn as well too from our experiences. Not that, I don't know, it's a tricky situation you're positioned, because the people who want to get involved or try to dictate an outcome for that space are getting affected physically, financially, mentally. So
it's going after everybody according to their weakness, and one of the biggest symbols is the horsefly.
So does the intention matter? Does the intention or the mindset matter.
I had coworkers that didn't believe in this stuff.
Yeah.
They were affected. They didn't put no intent into anything. They just didn't believe in it. But yet they were affected by it, right?
Right. They're not going in trying to say we're going to shut this down. It's really like we want to understand what it is and see what solutions are there.
So then I reach out. I get introduced to Rosemary Ellen Guiley, over the phone, who introduces me to Lorraine Warren. So this is back in 2015, and Lorraine tells Rosemary was about to get on a flight, and she tells her not to come to this house. Do not come to that house, labeled the Horsefly house. Don't go there. Wow. And there was a conversation between both of them, and Lorraine said that's the same demons that were in that Amityville house in Long Island. Mm. So then Rosemary says to me, she calls me, and she's, I don't know if I believe what Lorraine's saying. Lorraine's too old to go to your house, and she won't, even if she could. She goes, but I think you're dealing with, Rosemary Ellen Guiley says, I think you're dealing with the jinn. And I says, what's a jinn? Just like that. What's a jinn? I don't know what a jinn is. What's a jinn? I'm looking up jinn. What's a jinn? But this is not from this country. The way I was understanding the jinn is not from here. It's from the Middle East.
Yeah.
I wasn't getting it. Like, I'm not grasping it. Yeah. And then she says, I'm not coming there. I can't help you either. So no one's, for some reason, things are getting crushed right at the moment. Like, who doesn't want to come, right? But then the good news is the book is released on Amazon, and I get a big book signing in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So I'm about to go there with the psychic to the book reading the following day. Only get a call from the store owner saying, don't come. There's horseflies everywhere in my store. Now, I wasn't even at the store yet.
Right.
There's some of this stuff that I'm saying to you. Here comes the Italian in me.
Yeah. I understand
it. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds stupid. Okay?
But there is part of that culture.
But there's horseflies in your store? In your store before I even get there to do a book signing?
Yeah.
I understand the skeptical part of people because I was one of them. And I've learned that manifestation is real. The power of thought is real. Intent is real. And that these entities know how to play upon the fears and thoughts of a person. Before you even get to the location, like a GPS, you would set the GPS for your destination, it's already set your GPS. Mm.
So that would be, the question that I have was, I understand she's saying jinn. Would everybody who's tapping in perceive what is ever in that space, how that entity or presence wants it to be perceived? So you're going to get, as Laura Lee is commenting about her experience, it's going to be different approaches, so no one can really ever understand it because it's going to present differently. So it continually will have control.
Yes.
There's lots of comments peppering in. Hang on one second. Can we get to some of them? Okay, so Laura Lee is saying we had so many different opinions about what the 4 main entities were in our house. It was super frustrating. Contessa is saying now it makes sense. It was giving me Amityville vibes. Laura Lee is asking, do you find activity stirs up when you talk about your experiences in the house? Anticipation of you coming if the bookstore owners were aware you were coming. Maybe not coming, typo, hell. Yes. So, and again, like they already know the thoughts because the thoughts are there. Like ahead of the game. You don't even have to talk about it. You don't even have to write it down on the calendar. It's that 2 steps ahead, right? And we had talked about that in the beginning. There's ebbs and flows. There's periods of time where there was quiet in your house. This isn't something that was happening every day continuously. And I mean, you guys, Julia is a sensitive and a medium as well too, and helps people and work, and you help people and work as well too. It stays separate. It stays. It responds when it's wanting to, is what I'm, understanding. Does that make sense? Like, it's not affecting Julia from helping other people and doing sessions from them. It doesn't interfere in that way because it's something that's totally separate. And when it's having to do with the house, then it can needle in and create havoc. Am I asking that right? Do you know what I mean?
Again, there's some things I can't answer that I don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
I don't know. And from that point now, we've had more teams come forward into the home and do investigations.
Right.
Because now I don't care anymore. We both said, you know what, we can't move. Clergy don't work. We've had now the shaman, the Wiccan, the priest, the reverend, the deacon. We've had so much forms of clergy throughout time that it doesn't work. It backfires on everybody because that whole ministry that was here, that entire ministry that was at my home, one was in a car accident, one hit a deer, one had a heart attack, one died. Everyone throughout time has been affected in different ways. We could say, well, it's coincidence. Well, when you become a paranormal investigator and you live the life, I don't know if we really believe in that there is such thing as a coincidence. I believe in a pattern. I believe in a design and a puzzle. And I believe in that when you threaten and provoke something, and if you don't believe in it, it knows how to get you now because it's not going to let you go.
Yeah.
And we've had more teams come here. So then we decided to have Dinner with a Ghost here. Dinner with a Ghost is with John Cushman. They travel the world and they go to most haunted locations. And they set up the entire basement like a 5-star dinner, like it's extravagant, right? And all this is documented, by the way. And here comes the military. A lot of people from the Army base were into the paranormal. They wanted to learn about it. Teams, the whole table's filled up with Army people, and it was good. It was, we had a good time. We broke bread together. The meals are coming out. There's a cook. There's everything. 5-star. So one of the girls goes, that was the military's fiance, she goes, I don't see nothing. I don't believe in this. As soon as she said that, cast it on the back wall in the basement, comes a shadow right behind her. She grabs her throat and she stopped breathing. She's gasping for air. So these are big guys from the military. Like, they get her, they bring her outside the house. She's breathing heavy. She's throwing up. And he says to me, we fought wars in Iraq, Afghanistan. We don't know what's in this house and we're not coming back in, but thanks. They left. Now, you have to say to yourself at one point, you got the brave of the brave, but when they're saying if you can't see it, you can't fight it because you don't know what it is. When you provoke it and say, there's nothing here, or I don't believe, or it's fake, or I'm going to banish you, it shows its power. And it shows an unstoppable force to a believer or a non-believer, and it knows how to get you no matter what state you live in, no matter where you are. No matter where you are, you will be inflicted upon it if it wants to. Some people, it can care less. I get asked all the time, well, what about when cousins used to come over and relatives? It doesn't care. It doesn't care.
So shifting, does it like when you walk into a room when somebody has argued, you can feel that heaviness when you're going into that space, right? You can feel how heavy it is. So having the kids and grandchildren and all of the lightness that comes, with birthdays or hanging out, watching silly movies and stuff like that. Do you find that dampens any of that energy that you can, if you raise the vibe, does it quiet it down? Does it shrink it down at all? Like don't poke the hornet's nest, like redirect the intention or thought in a different way.
No.
It's just kind of waiting there.
It's got full force over every room in the house.
It sounds like you can't get a grip on it. Like you won't ever really understand what it is.
We had Chris Moon here and Denise Garcia, and he invented one of the spirit boxes, and he came here years ago. And they said that there's a portal in the basement, which is the same thing that Bill Freeman had said years prior. He passed away, that there's this portal and it's a tube and it goes straight up. And it only makes sense that the land was tainted. And in the portal, they call it this vortex. Anything that's you can't understand can come and go. So here we see the shadows, and they're not. Some of these are not full body apparitions. They look like snakes, misty snakes. Then there's that one orb, the circle that's the size of a cantaloupe, that a lot of people have caught on film and identified, and that seems to be the master of everything. So a few years ago, we had Paranormal Challenge here. Now, Paranormal Challenge is a branch off of Zach Bagans' team.
Yeah. Wasn't Dave Strader part of that too, though?
Yeah, but he wasn't here. It was a couple of the people from that team that came here that were non-believers of what we were talking about.
Right.
Okay? This would be 2019. There was a team of like 5 people. They're very well-known people. Again, I'm not mentioning some names here because this one was bad. Of course. And they come in and they're nice people, Then, and the guy says, "We're in the basement. I'm filming everybody. I'm going Facebook Live because I'm showing the world who's here at my help, And they're introducing themselves and their background and their beliefs and how they got into investigating and all that stuff. And this is the one thing no one should do, whether you believe in this or you don't separate." And the guy goes, "Well, I've been doing this for a long time. We're separating," meaning his team. I was like, "You shouldn't do that." So he has the female investigator up in the living room alone, the other and 2 investigators in the den, and then the rest of the team with myself, my wife, and a couple other people in the basement. Now I have home surveillance cameras, okay, for my protection. And what's happening is she's calling, the female investigator, who's a really nice person, is calling on a certain spirit by the name of Sarah, who was tied to this case in a very big way. And she's talking how Sarah's a child. And I know that you don't do that. You just don't do it. But what am I? I'm just a family guy, right? I'm only living the haunted life, but don't listen to me.
Right.
So lo and behold, they do their investigation. They start fighting and they start arguing, and the same scenario goes on and on and on. They leave. So a month goes by. I haven't heard from this guy. I was like, "What kind of evidence did you get?" When I finally reached out to him, and I was like, "By the way, that female investigator that was in my living room alone, she was calling for Sarah. She disappeared off camera for 12 minutes or reappeared." And I says, "It could be a camera glitch, but it was just odd. She was gone for 12 minutes. And he says to me, "Well, I don't want to mention her or talk about her." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "Maybe you should meet me." So we set up a few days later to meet at a local diner in Pennsylvania. And he shows me the newspaper headlines. "She's dead." It's like, "Look, before we came to that house, we didn't believe it. But the night before, we felt like something was visiting us in the hotel room. I came in there also, again, as a non-believer. And then we started to fight, and then we left there feeling like something was following us. He goes, this was no intent of my own. This was, something that happened. We got into an argument, him and her. And unfortunately, she's not alive anymore. And that broke my heart. And I say to myself and other people, is the disappearance of her a glitch off that camera system, or is it because you were tampering with something that you were mocking it in a child way? It retaliated to go after the guy, to retaliate to go after you.
Right. And how do you make those decisions to continue, or do you? I don't know, because I don't know what happens with the story after that. Do you allow people to continue? Do you make them sign a waiver? Do you say to them, this is the potential for these things to happen, and I'm verbally and giving you this written information so you are aware of what it is that you potentially can experience are coming in, whether you choose to believe it or not, but this is what it is, so that this is what the story is.
We had that team sign a waiver that night because we all felt, my wife and I felt something was off. We had them sign a waiver next to their name that was printed. They would sign their signature that we are not responsible because we don't know. We can't explain certain things,
You can't. And as paranormal investigators, we know that we are putting ourselves in those positions. Like, we know that there is the potential for things to go sideways. We know that we're putting ourselves in harm's way, whether we choose to be open to the depths of how much it can go sideways or not. But we are putting ourselves in those positions.
Yes, there's a lot of things we don't know. We can't explain.
Yeah. What do you think you've learned about yourself?
Like, it's non-believable, right?
What do you think you've learned about yourself through this journey? Like, how have you grown or changed as a person? Maybe as a partner or a dad? Like, what have you learned about yourself through this journey?
Well, after that incident, and that broke us, that we really felt like devastated, because that was such a nice person, We called in the big guns. We called in NESPR, which is Dan Rivera, the whole team that was branched off of Ed and Lorraine's Lawrence work.
Right.
Those are the people who have the Annabelle doll. We had them come here. It was July of 2020. It's like, we're done. We're done. I don't care if we're going to live in a car. I don't care what we do. We're out of here. I'm not doing it no more. It's just, we're going to get them. They're going to get rid of it. If they can't get rid of it, we'll leave it. Okay. That's exactly where we were now. We were mentally done. So Dan Rivera comes down with his whole team, nice people. And the first half of the day, they're interviewing my wife and myself, asking us questions. And they come back at night to do an investigation to see exactly what we're dealing with here in this home. And on the recorder, he asked me to ask a certain question. And I asked it, and he says, Phil, I want you to ask Sarah, who are you really? I said, okay. Now, this is a digital recorder that he's using. He's not using a spirit box where you could try to get anything coming through. So I says, Sarah, who are you really? And on the playback, in the most evil demonic voice, it says, in plain English, go F yourself, all of you.
Wow.
He looks at me
want to be known.
after the playback, and he goes, now this is a guy who, if you don't know him, then you know, this is the guy who's, again, the Annabelle doll, the Amityville, the Conjuring. These are those people that he says you're dealing with a legion of demons. Now, we all go upstairs into the living room. And this God is my witness. We're all in that living room, and he takes out a prayer book, and he's reading prayers. every light bulb in the kitchen, the living room, the dining room went so bright at once you had to close your eyes. And then it went back to normal. And we felt relieved.
Right.
We said, it's gone. It's over. Well, I'll tell you what. I was happy. My wife, we felt good. The house felt like peaceful again, light. No more thick and heavy air. Next day, I'm at Hobby Lobby buying crosses and statues of the Mother Mary. And the house is blessed, and we feel great. Awesome. We have won the battle. And I'll pause it there because I'm sure there'll be a part 2.
Yeah, we're running out of time, and that's not even talking about like closing a portal. Can you close a portal? Understanding a portal. There's so much more to it, and yeah, I knew that we were going to have a part 2.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many minutes left, and from that point on, I'll just leave it as.
Yeah. So where can people find you and Julia?
So you can find us on Facebook and all social media platforms, Horsefly Chronicles, World of Psychics. My wife is a well-known psychic.
Yes.
And we have our radio show, which is this network that we're on.
On Monday evenings at 8?
Monday evenings, 8 o'clock Eastern. And the book that I tell people to buy, if you want to, it's not my book. It's a book that was written about the story of my life, The Family Cabin, The Life of Philip Siracusa. It's written by Christina Corsetti. One person was brave enough to take this on, word for word, the way I'm explaining it to you, but for months on edge, and it was not easy. And it's in that book. But not only are the words in the book, the pictures of the people who were helping. Everyone I talked about tonight are in that book. The pictures of certain things and entities are in that book. The book is a tell-all. I wanted the book out there for people to see, this is it.
Yeah.
And it's not my book.
And you can only get it on Barnes & Noble, folks. Like, it's Barnes & Noble. It's not on Amazon. Don't go to Amazon. It's not there. It's on Barnes & Noble, because I was hoping to have it read before we got together, but it didn't get here. It didn't get here on time. So, but I appreciate everybody that was, Laura Lee's just saying, great show. Carrie Lynn Philip, Kathy is saying, never underestimate the power of prayer. Sometimes prayer is provoking, though, depending on what you're dealing with. So we need to be mindful of that as well, too. My friend The Wiz is saying, great show. Julie Kraus, who's in your neck of the woods as well too, is saying thank you to us both. And Kevin is saying great show and guest. It's rare I'm not working Friday, so I was glad to have the chance to catch you live, Carolyn. Thank you so much. And he's saying thank you to Philip as well too. If you guys want to hang out with the UPRN network, Jeffrey Pritchett is up next with the Church of Mabus. Next week on the show, I am having Ryan and Emily of a paranormal investigative group called Paranormal Theory, talking about paranormal theories, and being a new paranormal group, and some of the challenges that some of us have with para-unity, if there really is para-unity, and how hard that is to actually have para-unity. We'll be talking about that as well too. So thank you very much, everybody that listened to the show. Thank you so much, Philip, for being so gracious with your time and agreeing to come on the show. And I look forward to having you back on so we can keep the conversation going.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you to United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 New Orleans. And we'll see you next week, everybody. Thank you for being here.